Welcome to Patent Pending. I'm your host, Gabriel Moncau. Today, I'm joined at the top right by Natalie Rubenstein, well-known performer, singer, and ballet dancer. At the bottom left, we have Will Prevor, Disney aficionado, and that's putting it very lightly, renowned singer, and has many years in drama and theater. And at the bottom right, Ai Shono, ballet dancer, actress, and longtime thespian. So how are you guys doing today?
Great.
Good.
Awesome. So I guess we can just kind of get started at the beginning, right? How did you guys get into theater and drama and acting and all that jazz? Was there something that sort of prompted you, or has it something you've done for like forever?
Nat, you want to take this one?
I got into ballet first because my mom was a ballet dancer. So, from the start, like from when I could walk, she put me into ballet lessons. So, I guess that was my start. And then theater came when I went to performing arts camp for dance. And I dipped my toes in musical theater and I loved it. So, that was my start. But yeah. Hi.
I can go. So I started off with music first. So I did like piano and violin, like typical Asian stuff. My mom made me do it. So then like I got into music, and then I sort of just like did, because in my school we had to do like drama lessons. I'm not sure, because I was in the British school, so I'm not sure if you guys did like compulsory drama lessons and all this, and music lessons and everything. So we had that, and we just like did that in school, and like I really enjoyed it and everything. But it was all just for fun. And then I did my first performance, like it was like a big production when I was like 15. And then it was The Sound of Music. And from then on, I was like, wow, this is like what I want to do. So then I got into like singing lessons, and I'd been doing dance as well, but it wasn't like serious. And then I started taking all of them seriously. And yeah, and I didn't find like drama classes until like I got to America, but yeah, that's kind of just how I started out.
Yeah. I've been doing it for a very long time. I started at Pinecrest, and I did some of the like little kid shows and stuff over the years, and I just kind of really enjoyed it. And so they actually offered something in the lower school, and where you could basically buy your way into the middle school musical as a walk-on role. And I really, really wanted to do it. And so we bought it every year of my lower school career. I'm the only person to have ever done that. And so I was in that for many years. And during that time, I got very close to Miss Blakely, who was the teacher in Boca, and Mr. Malone, who taught music until he got a promotion. And then I was with Miss Bisco, who then became Miss Mayer when she got married. But it almost all ended for me in like second grade or something, when we finally had to actually audition to get into chorus. And I was rejected from chorus, actually. Mr. Malone turned me down. Me and Ariana Grande.
Yeah.
The two legends.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I decided to fight it. And so I got my parents to go in, and they talked to him, and we had another meeting. And basically my dad found this book that said you need some like crazy amount of hours to become proficient at something, and that if I wasn't in chorus, I wouldn't meet those requirements. And so we convinced him to let me in. And then, from there, I've just kept going with it. And yeah.
That's awesome. So how were the first few years in these programs for you guys? Like, did you guys come in with a certain expectation or hearing about it in a certain way and it was kind of different from what you expected? Or how was that first experience?
So mine was very like, because when I did my first big production that got me into musical theater, it was like surrounded by like people who've been doing it for like years. So it was like really weird to just come in and be like, oh yeah, I can do this. I dance, I sing, I kind of act, not really, but like, I can do it. Like it seems easy. And like I thought like it was just for fun, and it was just like, oh, it's just to entertain people. But like the amount of work that you have to put into it, and the amount of like, and how fast, because like we had this whole visa problem with the director coming in, so we were supposed to have like a few weeks. We only had like 5 days to learn the whole production, so we were all just like panicking and everything, but like we managed to do it. And it's kind of just like you see how much work is being put and you see like behind the scenes and everything. So wait, what was the question again?
Just how your experience was in the first couple of years. Like, did you come
Oh,
in
okay,
expecting it a certain way, or it was different?
Okay, so yeah, so then I learned like because I started talking to these kids that have been doing it for so many years, and I was like, okay, so like how did you find it and everything? And they just like told me a bunch of stuff that they've learned over the years, and I was like, wow, that's a lot. And like as you go and as you start like meeting new people, you get the same thing of sort of like it's hard and you're gonna get rejected like so many times, and it's like you're not gonna be happy like all the time, like you're gonna feel like you're failing and everything. And I feel like that was like sort of the consistent thing that was going on when I was learning. But and it's true. But you just gotta like be like Will, you gotta fight it. You gotta keep standing up for yourself and you gotta work for it. And it works out. So yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for me, since I was so young, I don't think I really necessarily thought like, oh, am I as good as these girls or am I as good as my surroundings? Because I was young. I thought I was the best at everything. Like I didn't really compare myself. But, it was funny. The first time I was in a musical was I must have been like 8 or something. And I was at a sleepaway camp, but my sleepaway camp was for sports. My parents put me in sports sleepaway camp. Although I was dancing and playing the cello already, they put me in sports sleepaway camp, which was the time. But they put on this little musical at the camp, and it's like completely recreational. Like you don't have to do it. And I was like, you know what? Like I like to sing, I like to dance. Like maybe I'll try out. And the tryout was that you choose a song you like to sing. So I sang a Shakira song. I didn't understand it had to be musical theater, so I sang a Shakira song. And they put me in the show, and it was great. I remember it was the Golden Goose. I don't know if it's a real musical, but they put me in the show, and I remember like being surrounded by these sports girls, like girls that enjoy doing sports because it was an all girls camp. And I was like, like I think I'm pretty good at this. Like I think I could do this. And I loved being in the show. So then right when I got home, I was like, I don't ever want to go back. Put me in. I want to go to theater camp. I want to go to performing arts camp. And then I ended up, going to theater camp, which was, a whole different like environment with girls who had been trained from birth to be amazing singers, have perfect pitch, like can do any dance move. And I was, like just starting, but I remember I was never nervous. It was more like I was inspired by my surroundings. And I guess that encouraged me to keep going. And I just loved it. I mean, I didn't really focus on competition when you're so young. I mean, obviously things change now because, if you're doing theater financially, of course it's a competition. It's not like they're offering 100,000 jobs in the theater world and any performing arts world. But yeah, I think it was just really pure when I was young. It was nice. It was a really nice start.
Yeah, and my start was mostly in the middle school musicals. I mean, we did some lower school shows, but I feel like I really learned the most at the middle school musicals. And, it was nice to, go on stage for like 3 seconds or whatever during the show. But really what I learned, obviously middle schoolers are held to a higher standard of behavior and effort and all that sort of stuff. And so I think I got that very early, like from kindergarten. And, over the years, even though I wasn't a middle schooler and technically was only supposed to be in the show for like 3 seconds, I just kept trying to show that I could do more. And I, always was listening very intently to what Mr. Malone and Miss Blakely were telling everyone. And it got to the point where probably by like 3rd grade or something, they were putting me in the show, like almost in every scene in the background because Miss Blakely, I remember one time she just like stopped rehearsal one day to point out how I was like acting in the scene and everybody else kind of wasn't. And this was like 3rd grade. We were doing Guys and Dolls, I think. And she literally put me in extra scenes and took out middle schoolers because they weren't acting enough. And so, those sort of, you need to learn, like always be in the moment. And, they teach us all these things in high school, but, I think I got them early, which helped me along.
Yeah, it's all about like experience and sort of just putting yourself out there and everything. Like, when you're mentioning like Natalie, like theatre camp and everything. So like the reason why I go to theatre camp is like because you're stuck in this like small little bubble and it's like, okay, you may be like the best or like one of the best or like there's just not that much competition if you know what I mean. So when you put yourself out there, you realize that you are at the bottom and that you're like, oh, I need so much more work, and which is why like I go out and I go and see places and everything, and I see these people who are like amazing, and you're like, wow, I need to learn from them. I need to know what they did to become so good, and then you like pick it up by yourself and you kind of work on it by yourself. And also like I remember when I went to one of the courses, one of the guys, because like a lot of people just go just to like have fun and just learn some new things, like learn something outside of like their major or whatever they're doing. And he asked me, he was like, what do you want to do as a job in the future? And I was like, I want to do musical theatre. And he goes, are you crazy? Because he's in the musical theatre industry. And he was just like, are you crazy? And I was like, I want to do it. And he was like, oh, good luck. And I was like, thanks. So I mean, like that kind of just shows like even people who are in the industry and who are successful, like they still have a really, really hard time. And yeah, I just feel like it's just like experience and just seeing people. And yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Sleepaway camps for arts. I went to French Woods for several years. I went to Stage Door and Interlaken, and yeah, Interlaken was not for me. But
I cannot imagine. I don't know why. I cannot imagine you enjoying sleepaway camp.
Oh no, I did not. When I got to Interlaken, man, I fought. Beforehand, like I was very excited. Like I loved auditioning. And you had to submit an audition and all this, and that was great. Then I got there. It was horrible. They took my phone away. I couldn't watch anything Disney on my phone. And so I literally was fighting them on it. And it was not great, which is why I stopped going. French Woods was great, really, in a lot of ways. But, the bunks, and no, not for me.
I feel like it's not your environment at all.
No.
So you guys have kind of started to touch on it now. I guess we can just jump into that. What kind of like programs did you guys sort of get started in that brought you up? I mean, you guys have mentioned a few camp names. Was there like a specific teacher, for example, that sort of really got you started, or a specific play or musical or something that you really wanted to do that got you started, or a camp, something like that?
Oh yeah. Do you guys want me to start?
You can go.
Okay. So yeah, I in terms of like I started really primarily in dance, and my first real performance company was the International Ballet Academy, which was just strict Russian ballet. That really got me into the dance world, really gave me a little head start because it was a crazy program, like very strict, very aggressive, almost ruined my passion for dance because it was so insane. That was my start in ballet, and then from there I went to like 60 different like dance companies and competition teams. But in terms of performing in general, I guess I went to a camp called Belvoir Terrace. It's a performing arts camp. It's all girls performing arts camp. I went for 7 summers, and then last year I went to Northwestern's National High School Institute's Cherubs program, which is it's 7 weeks, 5 weeks straight acting, 2 weeks musical theater. And I mean, in terms of like one show or something that like really like ignited interest, when I was younger, must have been like 6 or 7 years ago, or at Belvoir Terrace, we saw Chicago, and Chicago, it changed the game for me. I mean, I had never seen a show like Chicago. It was so fun, so exciting. I mean, a bit inappropriate.
I could see you in Chicago. You have like that style,
Like that was exactly. I was young and I was like, I think I could see myself really loving to be in the show. I mean, unfortunately, I've yet to be in it, but it's just like seeing people and being inspired and stuff and wanting to keep moving along that direction. And I was in a bunch of shows that are super similar to Chicago. But yeah, I guess that was like the one show that even my parents will tell you, like if they'll tell you like it was Chicago that like changed the whole thing for her. But yeah, I mean, I think it was really nice to get around. I was really fortunate to be able to go to all these programs and camps because it just opens your eyes to like the whole world of kids your age who enjoy doing what you do. And like I guess when you're doing theater in school and like lower middle high school, you kind of become so accustomed to your surroundings, which is great. I mean, that's an awesome thing to have a community inside school, but I guess reaching out and seeing the world is super interesting. I think like seeing other people doing what you love to do, performing with them, having them as your scene partners, it's an incredible experience. And I think like that was so awesome to be able to do in and out of school. So yeah, that's my take on programs and camps.
Did you guys have any other specific things that got you guys started? I or Will?
Yeah, I have. So after like I got into musical theater, my mom was just like, because my sister had been going to summer courses since she was 14, and she'd been going off by herself and everything. So it was very like, and so when I turned 16, my mom was like, "You still haven't gone to summer course," and I was like, "I know." And she's like, "You gotta go," and I was like, "Okay, fine." So I went online and I just like searched up like, because I still didn't have like that much knowledge of musical theater. So I was kind of just like still in the dark. I talked to like my theater teachers, but they were very much like, "Oh, do theater, not do like drama, not musical theater." They were very much like drama, do acting. Musical theater is just like, you know, on the side, like fun thing. It's not like serious. And I was like, "No, but I want to do it." So I searched up and I ended up going to RADA for drama, not musical theater. I did like I think I did stagecraft. I think I made my first summer in on a summer course was very short because I wanted to just have like a little taste to see what it was like. So I did 2 weeks at RADA. I think, yeah, it was stagecraft and devising theatre, I think it was. And then, I don't know if you know RADA, but it's the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. It's in London. And then I went to Mount View for, I think it was a week. Mount View is a great school, but I just didn't like it. Like, I think it was the program I chose as well, because I just wanted to like do a week course, and they only had like 5 weeks or 6 weeks. And I was like, no, I already have other stuff to do. So I'm not going to go too much into Mount View, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. But RADA was amazing, and I loved it. So I went back the next year, and I did another 2 weeks doing different courses. And then I did 2 weeks at ArtsEd, which is another school in London. And that one was like a game changer because like it was because I did 1 week of acting and then 1 week of musical theater, and it was like all purely for audition technique because that year I was going to audition for the drama schools, and I was just like, oh, I should really like, you know, see what it's like. And it was like the acting one was kind of like chill, and I was like, this is fun, you know, I got to meet some cool people. And then the musical theater one was like really intense because it was only 5 days, but like they taught you so much stuff, and like they were so critical, but like they were like, it was like constructive criticism, which is what I liked and what I needed, because no one had told me like flat out like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this on. Like they didn't sugarcoat it, you know, they weren't just like, oh, you know, you're really good at this. They were like, no, work on this, this isn't this. You're terrible at this, work on that. Like it was just, that's what I liked. And without that program, I think I wouldn't have been able to do as well as if I didn't do that. So, and I also met like a bunch of cool people. And like I met one girl who was going to the same school as me. So I was just like, oh my God, yay, I finally know someone. But it's just a good way to connect with people and everything. And in terms of like shows, like my first ever show was Cats. And I feel like a lot of people don't like Cats, but I love Cats so much. And I feel like I've appreciated more after I've like grown up and I learned more stuff. And Mr. Mistopheles is my favorite cat. Like, no, I've watched it so many times already, but it was my first musical. And then my favorite musical would probably be, besides Cats, would probably be like Phantom of the Opera, because and like I had so many people talking about it, and I was like, well, what's so great about it? Like I've heard some of the songs and they're good, but like what's so great about it? And I went to go see it, and then I met this guy, and then the guy who played the Phantom was called Ben Lewis. This is in London as well, and he was amazing. Like he was so good, and like that was like the one time I really, really wanted to go to the stage door and meet someone. So I actually I did meet him, and I just said like, I want to go to musical theater. What do you think? And he just like, you know, just like told me like a bunch of things that he learned along the way, and it was really helpful. And he like properly like stood there and like talked to every single person and like took time to talk to everything. And that's what I appreciated, because a lot of people just like sort of go, okay, take pictures, sign autographs, bye. but like he really took the time to sit down. And, like I thought that was what he was like one of like my I don't know, role models, I guess. Like he really inspired me to like go more into musical theater. And then like in terms of when I went to go see Hamilton, I feel like that was also kind of really interesting because that was like Hamilton was like made to be blind casted, and I feel like as I know they're like doing more blind casting and everything, and it's really helpful, especially like as you know, like an Asian like sort of going into this. It's like appreciated more, and it's not easier, but like it's nicer that they're being more like flexible with casting and everything rather than going for like a specific look. So I feel like Hamilton was a really good one to watch as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I went to those 3 summer camps. I went to Frenchwoods for many summers. I always enjoyed theater and such, and I did the walk-on roles and eventually, middle school and upper school. But I mean, the truth is, I've always had, my CEO of Disney dream, which obviously I can't be an actor and CEO of Disney. So, in some way, I'm not as serious per se as others. But Frenchwoods was a good fit in a lot of ways because it is a lot of arts, but it also is very relaxed. When I went to Stage Door, it was much more intense, and I reacted not so well to that. And then I went to Interlock, and I actually still to this day feel so bad about it because I started and I got the male lead in the show that they were doing, Dear Edwina. I'd never even heard of it before.
I was in Dear Edwina.
Oh, really? Well, yeah. So I got the male lead and like we'd done some rehearsals. But I mean, from day one, I had been fighting to leave that place because I hated it so much. I mean, the rehearsals were great, but everything outside of the rehearsals was just like horrible. And so I actually ended up leaving in the middle. And I still feel so bad about it because I did abandon them on that production. Which that's one of my things. Like I try and be very committed to things. And it's partially because of that, because I just still feel such regret from leaving them. And, so I think that kind of shaped even beyond being a performer just in life, like to be so very committed and not to commit to things that you can't really put 100% into, that really shaped me. But Frenchwoods, I also learned sort of my acting style in a way, because, in the walk-on roles, like it was always kind of predetermined what kind of role I was going to have. But, like my first show at Frenchwoods was, of course, a Disney show. I mean, that was by coincidence. But I was Bloat in Finding Nemo, the musical. And I actually, I'm kind of a pain in that I take my characters very seriously. I know Natalie and I know about that.
We know.
And, it's like we had this whole thing because, Bloat is a puffer fish. And so, they were doing it with puppets like they do at Animal Kingdom. And they have a Nemo show there. And they were using like an umbrella. And anyway, they bought this like black umbrella. And I was like, why are we using a black umbrella? Bloat is not, he's brown, like with spots and stuff. Like, I was like, why are we using this black umbrella? So I went to the prop shop at Frenchwoods and like spent, a whole day spray painting this umbrella to make it the correct colors and things. And, things like that, I think kind of taught me, that you really need to put 100% because nobody's going to do any of these things for you. So, if you want to be proud of what you're part of, you have to really go 100%. And it's like, even when I was in the prop shop, they were painting the seagulls, the ones that go like mine in the movie. And they were painting them black. And I was like, why are you painting them black? They're white. Like their feathers are white. So I went and I spray painted the birds. And I mean, they're just like in the background of the scene. They're not even puppets. But you have to put 100% of yourself into these sorts of things. And, that's what I learned at these programs. So Frenchwoods, I really liked, actually. I mean, I still didn't like the bunks and the food and a lot of things. But you also have to make do sometimes. I mean, you have to try and make everything the best you can, but sometimes you just got to make do. And you also have to fight for what's important to you. Like, a lot of my Boca friends know. I don't think Natalie or I know this about me, but I used to be obsessed with Big Time Rush.
I know this about you. Talked about this in English.
Yeah.
Oh yes, the Boca people know.
Yeah, it used to be like almost on par with Disney. I flew all over the country to see them in concerts. I've met them so many times. Like they recognize me when I meet them. Like still to this day,
How would I not know this?
Oh my god, I see your Instagram. You posted on Instagram.
Yeah. But yeah, so I used to be a huge Big Time Rush fan, and I remember the show was ending, and they were airing the final 2 episodes when I was supposed to be at camp, and I you're not allowed to have your phone. There's no TV to watch it on or anything. So, I was refusing to go because I was like, I can't miss the finale of Big Time Rush because I mean, my life was Big Time Rushes. Like I couldn't. So I went to the head of the camp and I spoke to him for over an hour trying to convince him. And in the end, on the 2 nights, the second to last episode and the final episode, he drove me to his house so that I could watch the final Big Time Rush episodes live as they aired.
I need a minute to process that. Yeah.
Will has taught me a lot about dedication.
For sure.
You get things done. I'll give you that.
So,
wow.
You just gotta push for what you want in life, or else you're not gonna get it. So.
I can't even imagine at my sleepaway camp if I asked them that. Well, they know me so well that I don't even know what they would do. That's such a great story. Like I have nothing to say to that. It's such a great story.
They all knew that I liked Big Time Rush a lot. It used to be like Disney in that like everybody knew me. I was the Disney / Big Time Rush guy. Like that was my.
Why am I not surprised though?
I had no idea. I wish I knew this earlier.
Of that final year, I did Confetti Falling by Big Time Rush. Like I sang it in the talent show. And I did this whole thing and I convinced my dad to buy like a bunch of confetti cannons, which were strictly prohibited, it turns out. But we brought in maybe 50 of those poppers for the confetti. And I got Matthew, who was at the camp too, and some people who were backstage hands. And they were popping the confetti cannons. And I had to get this crazy approval process. And it was just and then I had to, clean it up, of course, afterwards. But, I really wanted that confetti, right in the correct points of the song. So, I fought for it and then it happened. So,
William, you've done it again.
Oh my god.
That's really awesome. So I think that's an interesting point as well. How much do you guys think that other hobbies or interests in your life have affected or impacted how you do things in any of these programs in theater or dancing or singing or anything like that? Was it something like that where you integrated a lot and you're really passionate about your hobby and you use this as a medium almost, or is it, or vice versa? Does this impact your hobbies a lot as well, for example?
Yeah, I mean, what I enjoy a lot and what I appreciate a lot about being involved in multiple fields of fine arts, and although it did become a lot of work, there are things that I regret being a part of because it was just too stressful, but it happened and I learned from it. That doing for instance, I've been playing the cello since I was 4 years old. Playing the cello has helped me understand rhythm and understand music, which has helped me in ballet, and having technicality in ballet and grace and learning that, and then, or in jazz or hip hop, having that and then incorporating that into musical theater it's all interconnected. And I don't think people really, I don't think that they don't necessarily see it, but it's kind of, you don't really think about it until you talk about it, how helpful it is to do more than just acting. Most people I know who are involved in theater do more than just strictly shows. They take classes in other fields of fine arts. I know that my parents were at an auction and they auctioned a piano, and they won the auction, so they got the piano. And I've been dying to learn how to play the piano so I could play while I sing. Like, singing inspired me to want to learn piano, and now I can play a couple songs, but it's so fun for me to be able to sing and play. It's just like something I never got to do before, because like singing and playing the cello is not easy. It's so hard, and it's always been hard for me. So it's awesome. It's awesome to see how, as I've grown up, how helpful it has been to be a part of so many different types of fine arts. And I mean, I don't know what I'm doing in the future. I have no idea. I think these two, it's kind of intimidating because they both are clearly set what they want.
Yeah, my sister's doing her master's. She doesn't know what she's doing. So
who? What'd you say?
My sister's doing her master's and she doesn't know what she's doing. So you're good.
Yeah. I feel like that's what I'll be, because in a dream world, I'd love to be on film. Like, I'd love to be a film actress. That has been my dream for years. Which is surprising because people are like, no, you don't want to dance, you don't want to sing, and I'm like, no, like I really want to, do film. And I don't see how dancing and singing and playing the cello could be a disadvantage in going into that field. Like, it's going to be helpful regardless. And I think that, are they under me? These two also understand that, because they have been a part of so many different things, and they act and they sing and they dance. And I think it's unique. The three of us actually all do that, because I think it's special. And I think that you're going to find people in the industry, I don't even know what that means, that aren't going to be able to do that. And it's only going to be beneficial to us. So that's how I feel about it.
Exactly. Like, there are already so many people that in the industry that are like lying and being like, oh, I can play the piano, when they really can't. But like, Natalie can go out and be like, yeah, I play the cello, and they'll be like, yeah, you do. She can go and do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually like really helpful. You don't realize how it is, and then until like someone asks you about it, and you're like, yeah, I can do this. Like, for me, because I started out in music, I actually did ballet when I was like 3, but it was like baby ballet. I did it for like a year and I hated it, so I stopped. But no, so I started out piano and violin, and that helped me with dance as well. And it was weird because I never thought about it until like people started having issues with it, and I'm like, do you not know how to count? And I feel really bad for saying it, but I'm just like, 'cause to me it was like so easy for me to just do. So I was like, yeah, it's just like counts of 8 in like this, or like in a steady rhythm, or like, oh, this is how you count music, like in 4s or in 3, like the 3/4 and all this kind of stuff. But people are just like, I don't understand that. And I'm like, it's so weird to like, talk to people and like see how they think and how they grew up and everything, how it's different from you. So music definitely helped me. And yeah, the other stuff, there was something that Natalie said that kind of made me want to say something, but then I kind of forgot. So I'll think about it. Okay, well, you go.
Well, my passions, so I mean, really now it's all Disney. Big Time Rush kind of over. Although I'm hoping for a reunion because they just did an Instagram thing. So I don't know, we'll see. But I think with Disney, I've learned a lot about taking characters very seriously, and I think that's part of why I take them so seriously in the shows. Because to me, like Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, like they are so real, like in the way that I think about them. And, there are just certain things and it drives me nuts when Disney does something wrong. And I criticize it a lot, actually, but amongst, my Disney fan group. But, I think, and then also the theatrical elements of Disney, of course, transfer very easily into theater. But, I mean, there's, it's just certain ways that the characters interact. It's like, this is one of my biggest pet peeves in the parks. Chip and Dale, they always group them in with Mickey and friends. But they, okay, Mickey is fine with them, and I understand that. But Donald and Pluto hate them. Like, Chip and Dale have tortured Donald and Pluto to like no end, and yet like we're all in the parks, and then they're all like just dancing around like as if nothing has happened, and drives me nuts because Donald and Pluto should be reacting to Chip and Dale, and they don't do it nearly enough. Sometimes they do, but they don't do it nearly enough. It drives me nuts. But, you know, it's things like that, you know, that you have to always be in character. I mean, we've dealt with it a lot in 12th Night. Natalie knows about this because we were very close during that show, because I was playing basically her servant. And, you know, I would always try and be in character on stage, which was quite an effort. And there were some people who were not quite ready for that sometimes.
The
and
ending was my
I was
favorite.
kind of the villain. But, you know, you have to always like stay in character and, you know, very logically react, which I think is something I get from Disney.
That's super cool. I think on that note, something interesting to talk about as well is a lot of people might know you for what they see on stage, and I think a lot of that might be at school as well. How different do you think it is what people see on stage when people see you performing to how your experience has been backstage? Because you guys have done a lot. You guys have had a lot of different experiences in a lot of different fields in fine arts. So how do you think what you've seen is different from what the public sees, for example?
Well, I don't inch on my back across, you know, areas a lot, which is what most people know me for now. Still to this day, well, obviously not right now, but when we were in school, people still come up to me sometimes and they're like, "Oh, you're the earthworm guy," like from High School Musical. So yeah, I'm not like that. I also don't have like a limp, and I also don't hate everybody and always frown. So, you know, all my characters, you know, I invest in the character and I get a little bit of the character every time, but, you know, I'm not like them.
I don't know, like, I don't want to say too much just in case, because I don't know who's going to see this. But I think like this is kind of like going away from the question a little bit, but like, it's harder when the other person isn't as dedicated to the role as you are, like your scene partner, because you're trying, but they just don't give anything back, and like it's all about like response to what they're doing for you. So that's what like the other person meant to help you, and you're meant to help the other person. So I still remember when I did this isn't in Pinecrest, so but I remember I did a show with someone, and I was meant to be like the I don't know how to say this without being obvious.
Full exposed.
Yeah, so we were like together, like in the play, and he had a girlfriend, and it was like very hard when, because we were friends, but it was just very hard when like the girlfriend kind of like stops you sort of, or like it's uncomfortable, which makes you uncomfortable with trying to like be like that character in the scene, especially when she's watching you from backstage, because she worked from backstage. So it was just like, I don't know if this isn't really the question, but like it's just kind of hard when the other person just isn't as dedicated, or like there's someone like standing in the way from you being that character, because you're not trying to get with your boyfriend, like it's all like acting, like I'm not trying to steal your boyfriend, like it's just hard, like, you know. So I just like wish that some people would just understand that it's all acting and it's not real, and you know, it just makes it easier for everyone else. But yeah,
You know, that's interesting. That's a good point. I don't know if I've ever been in that specific situation, but it definitely is hard to fully like invest yourself into a part and into a scene and into a show when your surroundings are not doing the same. Like, mm-hmm. I think, I don't know how much I could say right now, but I had this problem a lot more doing shows in school, because a lot of reasons why. A lot of people do it just because it's another thing to put on a college application, or like they didn't really have any training, which is okay. We're not performing like in a professional theater company, like that's completely fine. It's just, for me, it is sometimes hard to really get myself into my 100% like full potential when I'm not inspired or motivated by my surroundings. And I mean, it's awesome, and I think a lot of us have had the experience of being with very like motivated and professional directors with kids who are also like, when you go to a performing arts camp, kids are not going there because they're not like passionate for what we're doing. Like, there's genuine passion to go to a camp like that because they know how much effort they have to put into it. So, I mean, that changes the game. Like performing for a school audience versus performing for an audience of people who want to go because they want to go, not because they're forced through attendance, it's so different. It's so different to perform for, and I don't think anyone can understand how different it is until you're like in those shoes and you do that. Because I mean, it's a whole different ball game. Like you feel so much more support. It's like performing for a school it's fun and it's funny and it's great for your friends to get to see you who like don't really necessarily enjoy or like are passionate about theater, and it's nice that they get to see what you're passionate about, but it's not so much like a real, I don't know, a real experience. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think it's really important, like the connection between the audience and the performers. And you know, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, but when you get it, you notice it and it's awesome. And I mean, yeah.
You just more.
Sorry, you go.
You're sorry. You're just like you're appreciated more, and you feel like you're appreciated more, like the work that you put in. And everyone's
Exactly.
just, oh, I see what you've done there, and then like give you feedback and everything, and you're just like, thank you.
And it's like when you perform for a high school, it's you can't get half as vulnerable as you would perform in a show with people you don't know in the audience or people that you've been performing with for weeks at a program. Like you cannot become as vulnerable because you're scared of what people will say. You're scared of what people are going to say after and like what they're going to post about you. And you're scared of making mistakes when in reality, like mistakes in a show just like make the show more unique and spectacular. And like, you can't appreciate that sometimes when you're performing for people who don't really necessarily care.
Yeah, and I remember when we talked about this, Natalie, actually backstage one time. You know, I mean, you know, I'm not really planning on doing this in the future and stuff. So, you know, in some ways, I'm not as serious. But, you know, like I said, I try to commit myself to productions, and you know, we have situations. I mean, we have some great teachers and directors at Pinecrest, and even you know in these other places. And then, you know, we'll be doing a scene and then everybody's talking and the director like can't get everybody to be quiet. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, why are you even here? Like, you know, and I mean, obviously there's lots of reasons for why they're there, but, you know, it's very difficult when people aren't as committed to the production to really put yourself all into it. But I think also it's taught us as actors, you know, to cater to your audience. Because I mean, as performers, that's ultimately what you're doing. And, you know, I mean, I've certainly made choices in some of my roles that are very specifically catered to the high school audience. I mean, you know, even when I was doing the Earthworm, you know, like I was trying to like sense from the audience what they would laugh at, or because I mean, that's really what that part was all about. But you know, like when I would turn, when I would, you know, curl up in a ball or something, you know, I was trying to sense it from them. And it's the same thing this year when I was grandpa, you know, I mean, I did some ridiculous things on stage that, you know, I mean, even grandpa, you know, I could have interpreted him in a way that he didn't do that, any of those things. But, you know, in the end, we're in a high school production. And so if you don't cater to the high school audience, then you're just kind of wasting your time.
That's what I respect about Will. Like he knows like already what he wants to do, and it's not like musical theater, but yet you still like, you know, put you like 100% and you still commit to what you're doing. Like I'm not like shouting anyone, like I'm not calling anyone out here, but there are just some people like it baffled me. Like because like it's just very different from where I came from, and I was just trying to get used to it. But like when people were like, there was this one girl who I was talking to before the High School Musical audition last year, and I met her there, and I was like, oh, we became kind of friends. And then after the auditions, she said that I was like, oh, so you're gonna go to rehearsal later on? And she was like, oh, I'm not going. And I was like, why? And she said, I quit. And I said, why? And she was like, because I didn't get the lead role. And I was like, and I was like, then why did you audition? She was like, oh, it's just for college. And I was like, well, because there's some people who are like super like into it, or like, you know, they work really hard for it and then they get the lead role and like they earned it, you know what I mean? But then there's some people just doing it just because they want to look good on an application. But it was just like it just like baffled me. I was like, what? But
Well-
yeah, like that's what I respect about Will, because you're dedicated and I like it and I respect
Well-
that.
Thank you. But it's like last year, in addition to the Earthworm, I did the mascot, which was also a lot of fun for me, especially considering my Disney thing. And also it's a Disney show. So like it was a perfect series of events. But I had to change upstairs, and I had a very short period of time to get downstairs at one point in the show. And we obviously are in rehearsals for weeks, and we've done this lots of times, and every time I tried to go down the stairs, there were like some of these people sitting on the stairs playing on their phones, and I'm like, and obviously I can barely talk and I can barely see too, and then they're like upset when I stepped on them, but it's like, well, you were sitting on the stair where you saw me go up like running, and then you like some of these people, that's one of those difficult things that you have to live with in a high school production that, you don't really have to in a regular professional type of production, or even at like a camp or something like that.
Yeah, some people just have blinkers on and they just see forwards. They can't see like anywhere else. And like, like not blaming them. It's just that, they just need to work on that.
I mean, that's part of the school system, I think. They, in a lot of ways over the years, they've been desperate. I mean, I especially know from boys' perspective. I mean, like this year, I was the only senior boy in the play and the musical, which, I mean, in some ways it's like, oh, great, because, that means like parts are kind of secured. But in another way, it's not great because, obviously we want more guys in fine arts. So any guys that are watching, do fine arts. But, we had a few over the years. We lost them through varying circumstances. But, it's kind of unfortunate in that way. But, in high school, they really try and get boys to be part of productions. And over the years, we've had lots of boys come in and out, especially in middle school, where, they would come in and they were like kind of, convinced or whatever, and their heart really wasn't in it. And so they just kind of stood there or, weren't really part of it. And, those people are the ones that ultimately decide not to continue. But, that's, it's part of the high school system, I think, to get lots of people to try, which I think is good, really, in the end, because after all, you're in school to learn, so you need to learn what you like too. So if you never try it, you never know.
In a different world, I would have been there alongside you guys. Two of the people here probably don't know, but I did do backstage tech for some drama shows in middle school, and I had always had an interest.
He
What
was
was
like
I, Will? Sorry.
You did some amazing backstage tech. You were like the best tech guy. Like
I was okay at what I did, but I don't know. First year going into high school, I tried to get involved in backstage again, and it seemed like everybody had already had, like, there were a lot of seniors that already kind of knew what they were doing, and it had seemed to be a very different situation from middle school. People were a bit more established, and then TSA and robotics came along, and I sort of maybe dipped a little bit, but it was a really good time, and under different circumstances, I would definitely have been there. But I think that is definitely something interesting to mention as well. We've talked a lot about like the start for everything for you guys, how you guys got started in this, where you went from there, how you guys have seen all these things develop and grow. So looking forward at the future, what do you think are like the problems with these programs right now? Either the pros or cons? Where do you think they can improve? Where do you think they're very good at what they do? And even where you guys think that you might be heading in the future?
That's a hard
It's kind
one.
of broad,
That's
open
a tough
ended.
one. Think about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the programs overall, they're pretty good. I mean, they're, we've obviously, everything is determined by how much you put into it. And, for people like us who put, our effort into it, we get great results. We've done some amazing shows. I mean, I couldn't be more proud of pretty much all the shows I've done at Pinecrest, despite any flaws. You know, I mean, our theater could use a little budget now and again. No boys' dressing room, although given the number of boys, I guess. But yeah, so
There are still boys though, so
there are some boys. Yeah, and the grade below us, actually, there's quite a few. So they should work on that. We're currently in the tech guys' office, and they just like hang some racks in there, and they're like, change quickly before he has to come back and do something. But so that's one thing. But I'd say overall the programs are very good. And they encourage you to join. I mean, maybe the rejection process from chorus could be improved, but
wait,
Yeah.
I have a question about that. What do you mean the rejection? Do you people audition for chorus?
Yeah,
It was in
it's not
Boca.
high school, but in lower school you had to audition to get in, and
Oh,
in Boca.
interesting.
Yeah, and they did not feel that I was up to snuff for that. So that was a little unfortunate at the time, but I was able to convince them. But yeah.
I can only talk from you two are probably tired of hearing this, but like I can only talk from a perspective of what I've experienced in other schools and then coming here, and I feel like the Pinecrest arts system is like, or like department, it has been the best out of all the schools that I've been to, because I mean I guess it's also because like the different systems and everything, which is why like it has like because I feel like the American system has more flexibility in terms of like being able to do arts and everything, but also it's kind of like the how do I say this in nice it's kind of like the mindset of the students as well, because I remember in my old school like performing arts just wasn't a thing. Like it was a thing, but it wasn't a cool thing. It's like if you did like music, it'll be like fine. If you're in a rock band, that's cool. But if you were like in drama and stuff, like a lot of people just weren't a part of it. Like in my production, there was only one guy, and he was the oh wait, no mind. I don't say anything. But there was only one. No one auditioned. No guys auditioned for the play. They had to ask someone to come in because no one, and it was mostly the boys that didn't want to do it. And the reason why like productions just weren't good and people came to see it and they're like, oh, that wasn't very good. Well, because people didn't put the effort in, and because people like didn't feel like they needed to or they wanted to, or they didn't feel like they didn't want to be put on stage on a shit production. Sorry, but like, do you know what I mean? So like, I feel like it comes with both sides, that students need to put in the work, but then the school needs to give in the support, because the school didn't give enough money or like support to the arts program for it to be good. And like stage, like they had like a black box stage, and then they had like a proper like what's it called again? What's the stage called again? The starts with the P.
Proscenium stage?
Proscenium stage.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they had like a proper proscenium stage, and they had black box theater. But like that was kind of it. And then like we had like drama classes, but I don't know. There just needs to be support from both sides. There needs to be effort on both sides for something to work and for production to work. And like I was like amazed by the dance studio at Pinecrest. I remember like the reason why I chose Pinecrest was because of the dance studio. I like walked in, I was like, whoa, like it's amazing. And they have like a whole like Marley floor, and like they have good dance teachers, and like they have bars and everything. Like the closest we got was like a gym with a really high bar that no one could use for dance, and there were only like 6 people or 5 people that did dance. And they like, it wasn't like ballet or anything. It was kind of just, it was like contemporary, but like the teacher wasn't very good either. And it just wasn't like what I was expecting and what I hoped it would be like. So when I came here, it was like a big shock. And yeah, I really enjoyed it here. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, our high school like theater is awesome. I mean, it definitely could use an increase in budget, but what we do well with what we have. They always have great costumes, great lighting. I mean, it's not a performing arts school, but they have up to par performing arts. Like the system is great. I don't know what I would just say would be. I mean, I know what I have come to understand at doing theater in school, and especially at a school like the one we go to where it's very rigorous academically, is that having rehearsals 6 times a week is not necessarily what is needed if you work efficiently. I feel like I've talked to Will about this. Will and I kind of talked about this once, how specifically for the musical process, if we were to have cut down half the days we have rehearsal and increase how efficiently we work, we could put on a show at the exact same time and have it like as great quality. Like a lot of the time, I feel like, especially since it's recreational, we spend a lot of time is wasted in rehearsal processes, and we could be doing our schoolwork, other activities. I feel like I got super frustrated in balancing going between show to show and having to just wait at both, and then being like, I could be doing something else, which, you know, is not the mindset you want. You want to be like present and involved. It's kind of hard sometimes when, you know, you're not being used for 8 hours in a process where it could have been 3 hours if we just worked really fast, which I guess that's different for everyone, but I feel like that's how I feel like something could be improved. And because I mean, when you're at a program over the summer or something like that, like they work. I know for my summer program last year, you would do core classes all day, like nothing regarding your show, and then at night for 3 hours you would have, not every day, you would have rehearsal, and rehearsal was like rehearsing, like you're in it to rehearse, and that's it. And I was astonished by the show we put on in 2 weeks. It was like 5 weeks acting, 2 weeks musical theater. In 2 weeks, we put on a full musical, like everything to do it. Like it was like a showcase. So it was like multiple songs from shows, but it was put together like it was a musical. And I was astonished. I was like, if I ever in school worked fast like this in 2 weeks and put on an hour and a half show, like I was like amazed that could work.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like when I came from Boca. In Boca, you know, in middle school, the extracurriculars are not quite as intensive as in the high school, obviously. And so, you know, the teachers really didn't like musical rehearsals because a lot of students were in it, and it was just sort of a big pain for them work-wise because they would kind of have to cut down on the amount of work because the rehearsals take so long. And so basically, Miss Blakely made a deal at some point. I mean, I think even before I was involved in them, that basically they would only rehearse for like 2 weeks, like literally 2 weeks, like from like first day of rehearsal to performance. And I remember when I came to Fort Lauderdale, and they're like, you know, first day, oh, we're auditioning for the musical that's in November, and I'm like, November? It's August. Why are we like even casting? Like, what is going on? And then, you know, I mean, they significantly, I mean, obviously the shows are longer because they just do the junior versions in the middle school. But, you know, I mean, once again, it's the kind of environment that they foster, you know, by making the rehearsals very long. And, you know, they are serious, but they're not very strict all the time. Like, oh, you know, you must be rehearsing and whatever. So, you know, Boca is able to do it very quickly. And I think Fort Lauderdale could too, if they put the time pressure, because really Pinecrest students are great at accomplishing things at the last minute. So when we feel the time pressure, it happens. It's just with the musicals, I think because Fort Lauderdale draws it out with like months and months of rehearsal, you know, we don't feel the time pressure until the very end. And sometimes it shows in the final weeks of rehearsals when you're like, this show is in like 1 week and we are not ready. But it always comes together.
So
like,
the other thing, oh, sorry, go.
No, so I was just gonna like basically just add to what Nancy and Will was saying. Just like the whole it's just again like the effort that people put in. Like when we did like Banjo Song, was it, or Skip to My Lou, like it should not have taken the amount of time that we took. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't even I understand that a lot of people aren't dancers, but it should not have taken that much time because people were like people were going off places, like people weren't attending, people were doing this and that and this. And I was just like, these are the same people that are complaining about not getting roles, I guess, or but also not being like they're like, oh, I'm not enough scenes, like why did this person get in this scene? And I was like, then show up. Like they got put in this scene because they were there. Like just show up, or like just like focus, and the teacher can see that you're putting the effort in, that you're focusing, and she'll be like, okay, I like that person the way she works. She may not be like the best person, but she puts in the effort, and like that's what I need right now, and she commits. So
Yeah. There's a guy, well, obviously Natalie know him, but Alex Stern, he's a sophomore. Yeah, sophomore.
He's going to become a junior.
He's going to be a junior. But, he is super committed. I remember, because I knew him because he went to Boca. And I remember when he was Bert in Mary Poppins, which was his 8th grade year. And we have this tradition where we go back and help with the middle school musicals, if you are from Boca. And so I went back, and I remember he wasn't going to sign up or he wasn't going to do the musicals or even chorus or anything. And like, I was like begging with him to do it because I knew how committed he was. And when I got him to agree eventually, and then he did when he showed up at Fort Lauderdale, and he has just become a force in fine arts, especially in the musical, because he goes to every rehearsal, regardless of if he's called or not, which is more than, I talk about commitment, but that's something else. And, he's gotten in a lot of scenes that he would not have originally been in just because he was there and, committed enough that our directors decided he needed to be part of it.
Like, it's like Mrs. Tay said, Natalie, like, you can, because a lot in ballet rehearsals, we kind of just sit there. We only do Saturday rehearsals. I mean, some leads get like other days, but it's usually just Saturday. But if you're sitting, and you're always sitting in the room, so if you're sitting in the room and you're watching, even though you're not even in the act or you're not in the dance, if you know what you're doing and someone's sick, you can just like, she'll be like, oh, do you know it? Okay, go and do it. Like you can fill in for this person. Yeah. Or like even in the show, like if that person is sick and someone knows it, she'll just put you in. So you always have to be watching, and you always have to be like, like paying attention, because you never know what could happen.
So we are kind of running a little bit low on time. So the one thing that I do want to say, which is something that I like to do in all these episodes, is now that we've kind of looked at the whole story, we looked at how you guys started, like kind of where we are now and where we think we're going. What do you guys want to say that you don't think is said enough? Whether it could be shout outs to people who were really impactful to you as you were coming up, it could be shout outs to people that you think are going to be really impactful in the future, and that transitions perfectly from what Will and I were talking about. Or it could also just be things that you think people don't talk about very much in these programs that you think needs to be said.
I have something that everyone says, but I feel like needs to be said again. Like you get told this so many times, but I feel like I didn't like get in my head until like recently. Like, always keep believing yourself. Always push for what you want, like Will does. Like, because you never know what could happen. And I'm like a big believer in like everything happens for a reason. If you don't get a role, maybe it's because something else is up for you. Maybe like, do you know what I mean? Like everything happens for a reason, and don't be disappointed if like 100 bad things happen to you. There can be that one amazing thing that's just like, wow, I wouldn't have been able to be here if that thing didn't happen. Do you know what I mean? So like, just keep pushing and just like keep believing in yourself, because you'll make it.
Yeah, I mean that's like the most important thing in this world of theater and acting and film and whatever you choose to go into, is that you're going to be told no 100 times before you're told yes. And I mean, you have to be ready for it. It's not it's rejection, but maybe it's happening because there's another opportunity opened. Maybe it wasn't right for you. Like it's going to be hard. Like I think we've all understood how hard rejection can be, especially in this world. But I mean, you just have to stick with it. If it's what you love to do, if it's what you enjoy, don't back down because someone said no to you. Don't back down because someone said you're not good enough. Like if you love it and if you're passionate, stick with it. I mean, what else is there? If you're happy doing it, then stick with it. Doesn't matter how good you are. Doesn't matter how how pretty you are, how high your range is. Like do it because you're happy. Like, it doesn't matter what other people think. You're doing it for yourself. That's my take on this. So.
Yeah, and I think what you're both saying about parts, it's actually, it's always been a very interesting thing for me because I, as pretty much the only boy in the department, I mean, there was one or two other boys for some years, but, pretty much the only boy, in some ways, a lot of people would say to me things like, oh, well, you're obviously just going to get the lead because, you're the only boy. So it's like, you're just going to get it. And I mean, in some cases that's worked out. In 8th grade, I did get the lead. But, in the end, they are trying to cast a good show here. And so, I was cast in that role because it was a good role for me. It was the baker in Into the Woods, which is sort of a comical role, which is become my specialty, which I actually didn't even realize at the time. But, it's like, even in upper school, I never had I guess 12th Night, technically I kind of did, like male lead. But, like even for, oh man, I don't even remember what's the name. It's like,
which one? Is it a musical?
I was like, Grandpa, what show is that? Meet Me in St. Louis.
Meet Me in St. Louis.
I know, we just did that show. But, in Meet Me in St. Louis, I didn't know anything about the show beforehand. I'd never even heard of it. And so, I just kind of envisioned like, oh, well, I'll just be the male lead. Like, because, everyone was just telling me that. And then I got Grandpa, and I was kind of like thrown because I was like, that's not really what I was expecting. But I have to tell you, I mean, and I thank Miss Boyd for this a lot because, sometimes, everything happens for a reason. And I think there's no role that I could have enjoyed more than being Grandpa. Because I mean, Natalie and I can tell you this. My cane was my favorite thing. I loved my cane. Yeah. Yes, I and I did a lot of stuff together in that show. And we did like a whole dance in the banjo where I was like throwing the cane around. Like
I was almost hit so many times. I was just like dodging them the whole time.
But there's no other role that I could have liked more than that. Even in High School Musical, it's kind of the same sort of thing. When I got that role, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna be in the ensemble again. But there's nothing else that was more fun than the earthworm or the mascot. Like, it's just, the teachers know what they're doing, I would say, is actually the thing that doesn't get said a lot. But they know what they're doing, so trust them and throw yourself in. They'll cast you in a part. I mean, when I was cast as the gangster in Kiss Me Kate, sophomore year, I mean, I'm a gangster. Like, yeah, I imagine that. But, I never thought that I would play a role like that. But, it just became, I mean, that's like one of my favorite roles. And it, like when I push myself under the curtain at the beginning of the song, like that's like, I mean, those are like the great moments, And so the teachers know what they're doing. So trust them and they'll lead you the right way.
Can I just quickly say something as well? Like never like that. I was gonna say that like people behind the table, like the panel, know what they're doing, so just trust that. And also I've learned to not doubt myself. Like don't doubt yourself because like I remember like I was really scared about going to like these summer courses, and then when I got into like drama school, I was so scared and being like, wow, all these people have been doing drama and been doing musical theater for like years. I want to go in there and be like the worst one there and everything. But then you have to remember like you're chosen for a reason. You're chosen for a reason, and you're there for a reason, and they chose you. So you just have to trust that you're good enough. Like even though you might not be the best, but you're good enough to be in that position. So like never doubt yourself and just show like what you've got and show your best side. And yeah.
So I think with that, because we are unfortunately kind of out of time, we could definitely talk for like hours on this. I think you guys were great guests, but I think with that we can kind of close out the show. Do you guys have any final thoughts, comments, shout outs that you want to say?
Shout out to Natalie and Will.
Yes,
Yeah,
great.
shout out to you guys.
Shout out to the backstage people too. I see you guys.
Shout out to the backstage. Shout out to everyone who was
Shout out
part
to the
of like,
whole crew.
everything.
Yes, everyone.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for coming. It's been a great show.
Yay.
Thank you for having us.
Exactly, yeah.